In the early 10th century, an Arab traveller named Ahmad ibn Fadlan journeyed along the Volga River, where pagan Russian tribes ruled. While travelling, he witnessed and recorded one of the most savage descriptions of a pagan funeral ever committed to parchment. This story draws directly from that account and reveals how pre-Christian communities treated life, death, and ritual sacrifice. I heard that at the deaths of their chief personages, they did many things, of which the least was cremation, and I was interested to learn more. At last, I was told of the death of one of their outstanding men. They placed him in a grave and put a roof over it for 10 days. All his possessions were divided into 3 parts, one for his family, another to pay for his clothing, and a third for making intoxicating drink, which they drink until the day when his female slave will kill herself and be burned with her master. When the man of whom I have spoken died, his girl slaves were asked, "Who will die with him?" One answered, "I." She was then put in the care of 2 young women, who watched over her and accompanied her everywhere. Occasionally they washed her feet with their own hands. The slave girl drinks and sings every day, giving herself over to pleasure. On the morning of the ceremony, I went to the river, where the ship had been drawn onto the shore. A wooden structure was erected around it. In the middle of the ship, they prepared a dome or pavilion of wood and covered this with various sorts of fabrics. They brought a couch and covered it with a mattress of Greek brocade. They began to guard the ship, while others went around it, speaking words which I did not understand. Then came an old woman whom they call the Angel of Death, and it is she who kills the girl slave. When they came to the grave, they removed the earth and took out the dead man. I saw that he had grown black from the cold of the country. The dead man did not smell bad, and only his colour had changed. They dressed him in trousers, boots, a tunic, and caftan of brocade with gold buttons. Then they carried him into the pavilion on the ship. They seated him on the mattress and propped him up with cushions. They brought intoxicating drink and fragrant plants, then bread, meat, and onions. Then they brought his weapons and placed them by his side. They brought a dog, which they cut in 2 and put in the ship. They took 2 horses and ran them until they sweated, then cut them to pieces with a sword. Next they killed a rooster and a hen and threw them in. The girl slave who wished to be killed went here and there and into each of their tents, and the master of each tent had sexual intercourse with her and said, "Tell your lord, I have done this out of love for him." In the afternoon, they led the slave girl to a wooden frame that they had made. She placed her feet on the palms of the men, and they raised her up 3 times to overlook the frame. Each time, before they lowered her, the girl spoke some words. The interpreter told me that the first time they raised her, she said, "I see my father and mother." The second time she said, "I see all my dead relatives." And the third time she said, "I see my master seated in paradise, and paradise is beautiful and green. With him are men and boy servants. He calls me, take me to him." The men made a path with their hands and raised her onto the ship, but didn't make her enter the pavilion. When they took her to the ship, she took off the bracelets and gave them to the old woman who was to kill her. She took off her rings and gave them to the girls who had served her. They were the daughters of the woman called the Angel of Death. Then came men with shields and sticks. The girl was given a cup of intoxicating drink. She sang as she drank it. The interpreter told me that in this fashion she bade farewell to all her girl companions. Then she was given another cup. She took it and sang for a long time, while the old woman incited her to drink up and go into the pavilion. The men began to strike their shields so that her cries could not be heard by the other slave girls. Then 6 men entered the pavilion, and each had intercourse with the girl. They laid her at the side of her master, and the Angel of Death looped a cord around her neck. Then she took out a broad-bladed dagger and plunged it between the girl's ribs repeatedly, while the men strangled her until she was dead. The closest relative of the dead man lit a piece of wood and walked to the boat. He was completely naked. The flames engulfed the pavilion. A powerful, fearful wind began to blow. The flames became fiercer and more intense. And actually, an hour had not passed before the ship, the girl, and her master were nothing but cinders and ashes.